Greetings, mind crafters, and welcome to another, just hopefully just interesting episode today. Another Minecraft episode, which is about becoming the boss of your brain. My name is Kimberly Quinn, and I am here to just talk about all kinds of ways to learn to take charge of your life and live your best life. We are talking about optimal human functioning and life satisfaction. This is what Minecraft is all about. So today, what I really want to talk about is so sort of rewriting your story. I'm talking about digging into the hard drive and in a sense evolving uh into your newer best self. This is kind of making me have a little bit of a gross thought 'cause I'm not a huge fan of reptiles, but it does fit here. When snakes and lizards, they actually molt. I know some types of birds do this too, but they actually shed and get rid of all that old, let's just make it metaphorical, the old self to make way for the brand new. And this is what we're talking about. And um, we actually can change the self in as far as taking what we've got and evolving and becoming even better and actually changing our programming. And I have a thing with people talking about neuroscience, and they can't back it up. Well, that's not me. I have a total pet peeve with that. When I hear other podcasters saying backed up with neuroscience, and then you're waiting, and there's nothing. So here we are talking about neurons that wire together, fire together, and we know for a fact we can literally change our lives by actively and deliberately changing our own neural connections, and we have the agency to do so. Okay, so remember again, about 95 to 96% of everything we do, especially after roughly the age of 35, is so automatic. It's coming from the depths of the vault, as I like to say, of the unconscious. And so this is hardcore wiring. And so to undo it, we've got to sort of be really paying attention to our conscious thoughts, that remaining 5% roughly, and also our behavior. We got to pay attention to all of it, how we're feeling. Where is this coming from? I'm in this situation again, and I just got this, agita. What's going on in this room that triggered something? That's kind of word that's overused. Let's say brought to the surface something, and then you got to really actively try to figure this stuff out in order to talk back to it. So, as Dr. Phil said long ago, I remember he used to say this. I didn't watch him very often, but he used to say that, and he's right, is that we as human beings don't do anything unless there's payoff in it. And payoff can make it sound like it's positive, and it can be positive, but we also get a sort of payoff feeling when we've got some unhealthy stuff going on, and such as self-punishment. Some people feel very, very comfortable not being treated well. And so we learn to not treat ourselves well because we were used to not being treated well by other people when we were kids. And so that's just one example. We can get payoff in guilt beatings. We can get payoff in sort of in situations that involve us being shamed, which means being set up to feel and to surge these feelings forth again that are of being flawed and defective and not enough. And that definitely, those of us who grew up in an addicted family, we would breathe shame like oxygen. And then you fast forward to adulthood, and you're wondering, like, why do I keep attracting these people, whether it's romantic or it's just friendships or whatever. And my very best friend from growing up, she and I are really aware of this, and we're both over it now. But even now, we're in our late 50s. Even 5 years ago, even we were still having the conversation. We knew that we were climbing out of it, but I would attract bullies, and not as partners. I'm married to a wonderful, wonderful man. Just out in the world, like I'm like, who are you? You were in the same outfit, and you're popping up in my life. And and she and I would talk about this because she attracted a different kind of personality. And so this is coming from the vault. So this is just one of my examples. So emotions are attached to old memories. We know that emotions are attached to memories, period. We go back deep, deep, deep into the vault when we pull up that memory, we're also pulling up the emotion that is attached to it. So many people want to change and try to just change simply by, changing things in our external environments, or they just kind of um, have ideas about how not to react to things themselves. It's kind of like me with the bully thing. I became aware of it. Like, what am I doing? So my best friend and I really just had so many talks about this, and now it's over. But let me tell you, it takes a while to, and it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of courage to rewire the brain. But wow, once you do it and you flip the script on that, oh my gosh, it's just you feel so much lighter. And so the awareness thing involves realizing that what's in that vault, much of it has become part of our actual identity. So this is what makes it so tricky. Yet once we get this, it gets less tricky, and we have because we do have the agency to change it. So another example into that bully thing that thankfully I've been over for a little while now. We do this on the same level with other things, and it's interesting because after you watch listen to this episode, just try to think about wow, because sometimes it's just really subtle. If your thing is feeling persecuted at work, like how come they always get the promotion? How come the politics at work? How come they go after them? Watch the conversation. Just pay attention to the conversations you have. People who are in that kind of persecuted mode are going to unconsciously seek out other people also in that persecuted mode. Their content, their story will be different. They might have been persecuted at their work or at home or by their, father's new girlfriend, or who knows. But and also, if people feel guilty, they're going to seek out other people who also feel guilty. If there are people who feel shame, they're going to look for ways to reinforce feeling flawed and defective by other people who are also feeling flawed and defective. And so it keeps reinforcing, reinforcing, reinforcing because the hard drive is actually looking for that because that's how it's always been since the beginning with all the messages we got from the people in our lives. And I don't mean in our lives necessarily. Yes, I do. I mean that. And also, media and people that kind of pop in and out. It doesn't have to always be only the parents. It can be, obviously anybody in the family and friends and school and coaches and all that stuff reinforced because we actively look to confirm what we already believe to be true. And this is actually called confirmation bias. It's often used in all kinds of ways with prejudice and different things. But for our purposes here, it's very important to understand this because the hard drive, again, is looking to reinforce itself. It's looking to seek out evidence to support what I already believe. So if I don't feel worthy, I'm going to make sure all day long, unconsciously, I'm looking for support for this theory that I'm not worthy, or shamed, or whatever. And the important thing about confirmation bias is that not only are we unconsciously looking to seek out that which we already believe to be true, but we're also simultaneously ignoring evidence to the contrary. So we're walking around feeling unworthy, and someone, we encounter, four compliments, genuine, heartfelt compliments during the day of wow, you really did this, you did that great, you did this great. And we hear it technically, but we don't. It just goes right by us because that does not compute with the programming we have underneath. Think of it like a puzzle piece that's put in the wrong puzzle. It's not going to fit. And so the brain just casts it aside, even though it actually technically heard it. It doesn't ingest it, it doesn't take it in because the programming is not wired for that. So while we're doing that birds of a feather flock together thing with all these, unconscious negative emotions, we are integrating that. Well, it's already been integrated. We are further strengthening the integration of all those negative emotions into our wiring, and actually, you know, um, identifying with these. And we'll often say it outwardly. So it's so important to listen to your own dialogue, saying, "I am whatever. I am guilty. I am persecuted. I am insecure." I am always gonna be cheated on. I am always gonna cave into my anxiety. I'm always gonna have depression. You gotta be so careful once you get this whole idea of be really hyper vigilant of what you allow yourself to say after those words, I am. So Joe Dispenza's talking a lot about this. I listened to him earlier, so I got to give him a shout out. And also Wayne Dyer's talked about this for years. Be so careful. Say, I am exhausted. I say this to my students a lot. I'm exhausted. Well, you can be darn sure. And I'll say to them, once you declare you're exhausted, you're going to be, and they all say it in unison, exhausted. If you say, I am depressed, guess what you're going to be? And obviously, depression's more complicated than that. And that said, there's still a very, very, very large, enormous component of choice there. And you can be certainly sure if you're declaring that I'm nervous, I'm anxious, I'm whatever, that's exactly what you're going to be. And so, Joe D, Dr. Joe D, really, I'm really liking what I hear from him. I have to tell you, he talks a lot about this. That if so, and he is all about the neuroscience, like I am. If you're not, sort of consciously, actively, and deliberately, sort of redesign, being redefined by your authentic desire into, into like a vision of a more positive future to yourself, for yourself. You're going to continue to be redefined or defined. You're going to continue to be defined by the past. It's just how it is. And sometimes people might be thinking, oh, but she's all about living in the moment and mindfulness. I am absolutely living in the moment. We're talking about bringing this into the moment. When you do a mindfulness meditation in the morning, consciously thinking during the day, just carving out some deliberate moments to think about this heart's desire, um, for a better future. Because otherwise, we the brain ends up kicking the default network into gear, which is what if you don't remember what that is from a few episodes ago, we all have one. The default network is what, when we're kind of on autopilot, mind's wandering, we tend to land in the hard drive of the vault of the unconscious, which is not a safe place to linger. It just isn't. Picture yourself in a dark alley at night in some major city or something. It's just not a great place to be lingering, or way out in the wilderness, deep, deep in there off the trail, and who knows what could get you out there too. It's just not a good it's not usually not a good ending. And so what it comes down to, is you want to steer clear of that default network. It comes down to wanting to live by choosing to live by design and not default. And this also involves a component of getting excited about something that's that's bigger than you are. I don't mean the biggest fish in the concrete sense. I mean, sort of like a larger dream or goal for yourself. And Tony Robbins also talks a lot about this. I was reading an article by him on LinkedIn. It was yesterday, I think, or maybe it was this morning. I'm not sure, but he talks about, no, it wasn't yesterday. It wasn't today. It must have been yesterday. Anyway, he talks about the larger than yourself thing. And also he says that if you're, if your goals don't scare you, find another goal. Because if it's really you know, um, a good, really wonderful visual, future heart's desire, authentic desire, and it is bigger than yourself, it should scare you a little bit. And you know what I continue to find fascinating as I listen to all my circle of great thinkers is how they are saying the same thing, just different words. And today my thread was, of course, Wayne Dyer, but Joe Dispenza and Tony Robbins saying exactly the same thing. And how it's also because they're all big meditators, all of them. Wayne Dyer, everybody, Oprah, everybody that I listen to. And of course, I spent an hour and a half out in the woods today, which is a little longer than I usually do, but I really needed to get my head clear. And I said to myself, I'm not coming back today until Giovanni and I are feeling good about it. He's the golden retriever, and of course, he's always mindful, because I really needed to get centered, and I had some stuff coming out of the vault, was spewing out of me this morning, and I said, no, no, no. And out we went in the woods, and just incredible. So anyway, this is about envisioning. So we've got to believe in a future that we can't yet experience with our senses. And that's where the mindfulness piece comes in, to really, really carve out some time Joe Dispenza, I know takes a lot of time. Most people can't do quite that much time. At least I can't. But definitely we can take 15 minutes. And if all you have is five, like my oldest son says constantly, 5 minutes is better than no minutes. So we know at this point, we literally, you can change your brain just by thinking. And I don't mean to make it sound easy. Nobody said that, but it is that simple. We have the control to change our entire lives by changing how we think. And so we need to begin about this, this new possibility of this new, new story writing, new future. Shed the old self, right? Shed the old self so we can evolve into, the person we really want to become, so we can really live the life we want to have. And we're talking about mental rehearsal, and the timing is great for me because in cognitive psychology, we just did this with my students yesterday, actually visual imagery. And in order to change the neurons, we really have to get quiet, close our eyes, get rid of all the technology, definitely. Any distractions, music without words, maybe, but we need to really, really get quiet because if the neurons are going to change, they need no distractions, and it's all about the neurons. So when we start to really envision this, the brain, we start to get that the brain is no longer. What starts to happen is that the brain becomes no longer an old blueprint to the past, but instead or like a memory trail to the past. It becomes instead a map to the future. And might sound kind of backwards to some people, but this is actually how it works. That we have to emotionally embrace our new future before whatever it is that we're trying to manifest will manifest. And I was reading an episode, maybe it was when I was out in the woods. People get so focused on that the manifest, like the actual concrete manifestation of whatever it is that they're desiring. That's such a small part of it, and also doesn't last as long. Does it feel great? It absolutely does. But it's all about the journey, which I realize sounds very cliche, although it's true, because when we're along the journey of trying to invent this new self and slough off that old skin and become our own butterfly, right? We have to and envision it to the point that we actually train the body to feel it. So it's kind of like, and we also, okay, so and we're also celebrating. It's very important to say this. We're celebrating the green lights along the way, not just waiting for that perfect house to happen, or the partner. The waiting thing is over, right? The waiting thing is over as far as you know waiting to feel whole. Like, you got to feel whole now to heal. That's how it works. Or if it's a new partner or a new relationship you're looking for, you got to kind of be that love and feel that love now. Or whether it's a job, you got to find something you're grateful for about that job now, to be in this grateful, abundant place, even if you mostly don't like it, to latch on to a couple things that you really, really, it's a friend, it's a flexibility, something, because we've got to actually train the body to feel that. So to feel that wholeness, to feel that love, to feel that excitement or whatever it is, as if it has already happened. And this is how the manifestation actually happens. You just want to focus on that, because when we start to, sh- you know, be aware of, invite, and then be grateful for the green lights that show up on the way to this new future. Somebody randomly comes into our lives at the grocery store. We were talking about some book, and then they're talking about it right behind us. My whole life is like this. Then I'm just saying thank you, not even to the person necessarily, or maybe, but in my head, I'm like, oh, that's right. That's the name of it. I couldn't figure out. And the green lights, green light, green lights. Or you can also think of it as like a popcorn trail, like a breadcrumbs or something. Get excited for the breadcrumbs and be grateful for the breadcrumbs that are leading us along the way, because so many times people get focused on the outcome, and that is not the key to happiness for sure, or manifestation. Remember that whatever it is that we're excited for doesn't last that long anyway. We got to be excited for the whole journey. It's kind of like when we we're planning, if like we decide to go on a vacation and we're planning it in the anticipation, and that is all part of the whole excitement. If we just fast forwarded through all of that planning and getting excited, and then once we're there, we're buying postcards, we're going on a day trip, we're taking some pictures, we have a fabulous dinner. Is we just fast forwarded through the whole vacation anticipation, booking it, going, dinners, and then the end, and we came home and just that wouldn't be too exciting. And that's the destination is being home, but you missed all the fun part. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, it's really all about the journey. So it kind of also comes down to the, cause and effect, cause and effect versus causing the effect. A lot of people, when we talk about abundance, also go straight for money. So somebody's, again, waiting, right? Waiting for wealth to feel abundant. And the formula is exactly opposite from that. And, in order to feel abundant, we've got to reside in gratitude. It's then when wealth happens. And that's just how it goes. And, neurologically speaking, what's really cool when we're making this transformation into our new butterfly, shedding the old story, the old narrative, and creating our new story, is there's something that's very, very Darwinian, which is called neural pruning. So while we are no longer using those negative emotions, negative habits, negative memories, they're getting pruned, just like it's actually April right now. So this pruning is a lot what we do right now. You snip off the dead stuff to make way for the new growth, right? Well, neural pruning is a real thing. So an example of it that's not this would be if you took, high school Spanish and maybe you took 4 years of it and you got really, close to fluent, you became fluent, and then you didn't use it for the last, 20 years. You're not going to have much of that Spanish left. Obviously, I'm not saying you're not going to have any, but obviously a lot of it's going to get pruned because if you don't use it, you lose it. So that can work not in our favor, like in the Spanish high school Spanish example, but it can very much work in our favor when we no longer are hanging onto using and reinforcing these old negative neural pathways. If you don't use it, you lose it applies to that too, which means they get trimmed and pruned to make way for the new positive neural, pathways being created, which are building this new narrative, this story, and in some ways, this brand new self. All righty. So we're talking about making the neurological shift from being anchored to the past with all those memories and the attached emotions into this bright new future with a bright new story, new narrative, and brand new, bright and cheerful self living his, her, or their very best life. This is Kimberly Quinn signing off from the beautiful Northern Vermont. Have a mindful day.